So we finally got the bot working on my phone right now. And in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how you can set up your own WhatsApp AI bot using pure Python completely for free. So throughout this video, I'm going to walk you through this repository that you can clone over here as well. So if you want to follow along, make sure you clone this. All of the information and all the code that we will be using is already in here, as well as all of the steps for the documentation. I'm going to walk you through this in video format, showing you everything that you need to know, but it's also here for reference in a text format. Now, there are some requirements that you need in order to follow along. And first of all, it's good if you have some basic understanding of Python, so you actually know what we're doing and you can follow along. So my setup that I got going on is here within VS Code, but after cloning all of the code in the repository, you should have a Python environment that you can run, so you can start testing. So with that out of the way, we can get into it. And then the next step is, first we need a Meta developer account. So Meta, formerly Facebook, owns WhatsApp, and we have to start from their developer portal to create an application and then configure it for WhatsApp. So if you don't already have one, follow step 1, follow the link over here and create your Meta developer account. Okay, then second, we need to create a business app. So you can follow the documentation over here to see how that works, but let me show you that and give you an example. So let me refresh this, come over here. If I come over to Meta for developers and go to my apps, I can see I have 2 apps over here. So the Python Airbnb bot is the one that we'll be using for this demo. I'm also experimenting with a bot that I'm building with BotPress. That is for another video, but you can come over here and click on the create app. And then here you have to select other, then next. Then over here, we can select business, next. And then you fill in your app contact email and select the name for it. So this is the test bot. And then over here, you want to select your Meta developer business account that you've just created in step 1. So make sure to select that over here and then you can create the app. Now, the next thing that we have to do is add WhatsApp to it. So scroll down, go to WhatsApp and click on setup. And then you should see that WhatsApp is added over here to your application. Now, that is setting up the initial bot. And with that out of the way, we can continue to step 1, getting to our phone numbers. If you go to WhatsApp and then API setup, you can see some information over here. And first of all, we can see your test phone number here and also your phone number ID. And this one is important because this is the number that we will be using to actually send text messages to. And if you come over here and look at the official documentation, you can see that everyone, let's see, starts with a phone number. So with a test phone number. So if you add WhatsApp product to your app, it does the following things. So you will be prompted to create a Meta business account, but you will also get this free test number, which is very nice. So we can test with it. And you can add 5 recipient phone numbers to this application. So one of that will be your own WhatsApp number that you can use to interact, but you can add 4 more for testing purposes. All right. So what we should then do is, let's see, come back to the documentation, and you should now add your own phone number as well. So like I've said, this is one of those 5 numbers that you can add, and you do that by going to the 2 over here and then select a phone number. So my number is already here, which I will black out for you, but then you can go to manage phone number list and you can add a phone number. So put in your country code, put in your number, and then store it. And from there, you can then select this. And before you can add that number, so once you fill it in, you also get a code via WhatsApp. So don't check your text messages, check your actual WhatsApp app. And there you should have the code for verification that you have to put in. All right, so that concludes step 1. We now have the WhatsApp business app going on. We have a test number and we've added your own number for testing purposes. All right, and then we can continue to step 2, which is sending messages with the API. So for this, we first go back to the app overview, and here we can do 2 things. So first of all, we can send a test message here straight from the app dashboard. So if you come over here and you fill in your own number and then click send message, that is one way to verify if everything is working. So you can do that, but that is pretty straightforward. And eventually we want to do this with Python, of course. So while you can test this out yourself to see if it works, I recommend you to immediately go to the Python function that we have created as well. So let's have a look at that. And then we're trying to simulate what's going on over here with Python. So that's really the first step. And for that, we go to the start folder and then we go to the WhatsApp quick start. And here you can see a send WhatsApp message function that we are going to use. And here you can see how we can call that function. But before we can do that, we have to fill in some of the information that our application needs in order to make this verification. And first of all, we need a version, a phone number ID, and we need an access token. So the next step that you're going to do is, let me come back to the example over here. You're going to create a .env file based on the example.env file within the project folder over here. So what you do is you create a new copy. So let's see, we take this one and we copy it and you call this one .env, which I already have. So I don't have to do that one. And in here are all of my keys, but you are going to update this one. And we're going to start with the access token. And the access token can be accessed over here from the app dashboard, API setup, temporary access token. Now, please note that this only lasts for 24 hours. So if you copy and paste that, put it in here, if you come back tomorrow, you'll have to update that again. Within the instructions over here, I explain how you can create a token that lasts for longer, for 60 days or even longer. So if you want to do that, then follow these instructions over here. It's pretty straightforward, but you can figure that out. Eventually, you'll have another very long token that you then put in here and it will work the same. Okay, so that's step one. So let's come back. What do we need as well? That is the version number, and that is already filled in. So that is version 18. So that is currently the latest version of the WhatsApp API that we can use. Then we have the phone number ID and we have your phone number. So coming back, so the recipient WhatsApp ID, that should be your number, and you should put that in here with the country code included. So I have an example over here. That is what you should put in here. So if then this, for example, would be your number, you come over here, you store that in here. Then final thing for now is the phone number ID, and that is your WhatsApp test number. So coming back to the API setup, phone number ID, you copy that, you come back, phone number ID, plug it in there. All right, and once all of that information is filled in, we have everything that we need in order to run this first function where we are going to simulate the hello world test message. But before we can do that, make sure you have an active Python environment with the requirements.txt installed, because for this test already we need the python.env library to load all of the information from the .env file. So if you have that up and running, let's load this up and see if everything works. Okay, no errors. Then we can store this function in memory. And then now we're going to actually send the template message to our own number. So let's run this, see what's happening. We get a 200 status message, which says that everything is okay. And now we're going to monitor our own WhatsApp application and wait for the test message, the hello world template message, to arrive. Now this can take anywhere from 60 to 120 seconds based on my experiments, but make sure you get that before we continue to the next step, because this is really essential to configure that we have that connection going on. All right, there it is. We got the message, so everything is set up properly. Now, and then the next step, which is very important, and this took me way too long to figure out, is we have to reply back to the bot. Why is that? If you don't reply, WhatsApp is only able to send template messages like this using type template and, for example, this hello world. And it doesn't work if you want to send a custom message, which is the next step that we're going to do. So simply reply with anything, just say hi, and it won't say anything back. But what we can do right now is now, since we have that connection, your number is now verified and we can now continue. So I have a get text message over here and a new send message function as well. And what we can now do, we have the text in here, says, hello, this is a text message. Let's send this. And then if everything works well, you should get this test message within WhatsApp as well. All right. And then for all you geeks out there, if you want to take this even further, there's also some code to send these messages async. So eventually when you put this into production, this could be interesting. For now, I'm not going to dive into this, but it's here for your reference. That almost covers or completes step 2, but there's 2 more things that we have to do. We first of all need your app ID and your app secret, which we will use in later steps. So we're going to update these within your .env file. So this is the example, make sure it's in the actual .env file. So that is going to be your app ID and your app secret. Now, where do you get that information? You come back to your app dashboard. Here you can see app ID, copy paste that over there, and then your secret can be found by going to app settings, basic, and here again you have your app ID and app secret. So click on show, copy that information, and then paste that in here. So that should conclude all of the information. So we have ID, secret, your phone number, the version, and the access token, either the 24-hour one or the one created for a system user. And that concludes step 2. Now, and if you've been following along up until this point, then please make sure to hit that like button and also subscribe to the channel so you make sure that you stay tuned for future AI videos. All right, and then let's get into step number 3, which is configuring webhooks to receive messages. And now let me also state that this is the hardest part of the tutorial. But if you figure this out, if you follow these steps, then you will have all the building blocks you need. So what we are essentially going to do here, we just saw that we now have a function that we can use to send a directed message towards a number, right? But what we want, of course, is we want to create some kind of a trigger where if the app receives a message, something is triggered. So whenever I send a text message like, hey, and I ask a question to the bot, we want the bot to take action, right? So how do we configure something to listen for that? Well, we do that through what's called a webhook. So the first thing that we have to do right now is we're going to run our application. So we come back to our project, we go to run.py, make sure that you have a Python environment active and make sure that you have all the requirements installed. If you don't have that yet, run pip install all requirements.txt to get it all up and running. And what we can then do is we can come over here within VS Code and say run Python file. Now, if you're using any other IDE or Python editor, it should be a similar process, even through the terminal. Your app should be running, and this is the information that you should see over here. So running on, and then an IP address, and then port 8000. So the next thing that we have to do is we have to use ngrok. And ngrok is a tool that we can use to simulate a server essentially. So we're running this app locally and it's running on localhost, but it must be able to listen to WhatsApp messages. So whenever a message is sent to WhatsApp, that ping, that information, that webhook should be sent somewhere. And if that's on localhost, and the meaning offline, we can't get to that. So ngrok is a tool that we can use to bypass that for testing and development purposes, where later you would transition this to a real server that's running all the time and has access to the internet. And for those of you that might have already worked with ngrok before, this is important because this is also where I ran into some issues, and this took me another 2 hours of debugging. You need a static ngrok domain, and that means you have to sign up for an account and claim your free domain, because if you don't use it with an account and without the authentication, it will not work, because Meta validates your ngrok domain and certificate. And if you just, for example, with brew, install ngrok and then run it, doesn't work. you need to follow these steps. So if you're new to Ngrok, just sign up for a free account, download the Ngrok agent, and then go to the authentication. And all of these steps that are listed over here, if you check out this documentation, you can follow the steps here as well. And it's a little bit more visual. And eventually they also say over here, you go to the dashboard, how you authenticate it. You have to run some commands with an authentication token within your terminal. And it should be pretty straightforward. You should set that up. Okay. And then that is where you should create your free domain. So that's also a URL over here. How do I claim my free static domain? If you go to your Ngrok profile, log in, go to Cloud Edge Domains. If you don't have one, you can create one for free. So here you can see how that works. And then you can also copy and store that. So that's very important because once that is all up and running, we can now start Ngrok. And you can do that by using the following command. So it's Ngrok HTTP. We run this on port 8000. You do -- domain, and then this is where you copy and paste your free Ngrok domain. So let me show you what that will look like. For my one, I can run this over here, and here you can see it's now running, and we should monitor this because soon we will start to make connections with this and the logs will show up over here. All right, so this is now running, and those are all of the steps over here. Now, next, integrate with WhatsApp. Now we have to go back again to our Meta app dashboard. Come over here to WhatsApp, then go to configuration. And here we can see that we can set up a webhook. So I already have one, but you should come over here and edit it. So first of all, the callback URL. Let's see, that is over here. So this is where you take your Ngrok free domain, take the full URL. It should probably end with .app if you use the free one. And then make sure you use /webhooks because that is how it's configured within the Flask app. If we come over to, let's see, where is it? To the app and then to the views, you can see over here that this is, we have /webhook. So make sure that that is configured correctly. And then next, you can enter a verification token. Now, this is completely up to you what to put in here. It doesn't matter. You could put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever. The only important thing is that you store this verification token because we need it later. So put something in and then come back to your .env file. I'll take the example and make sure that you put that verified token and update it. So if you do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, make sure to store that there as well. All right. So if your Flask app is running, you should see the terminal running over here, and your Ngrok is also running. Make sure both are on port 8000. And this is why I said this is the hardest part. There are a lot of moving parts that have to work together over here. And if you mess up one thing, this will not work. But if you did everything correct up until this point, you can hit verify and save, and it should pass that check mark, and you can have a look at the Ngrok logs over here, and that should work. Mine is already set up, so I can continue to the next page. And then the next step is go back to the configuration page and click manage. So that's over here, webhook fields. And here we can identify subscriptions that we want to subscribe to. And the only one that you need, although you can update to more subscriptions, but for now we only do messages. So make sure to checkbox this one over here, hit save, continue, or done to make sure that you are subscribed to messages. So what does that mean? This does now mean that our application is listening to incoming messages. And if that happens, it will trigger or send some information to this URL, which is right now configured with our Flask application and tunneled through Ngrok. So are you still with me? I can understand if you're new to all of this, it can be quite a lot to understand how all of this comes together. But yeah, this is building web applications. And now one final check that you can do. If everything is up and running, you can come over here to the messages and you can click on test. So Let's see what that is doing. See over here, we can see post, a webhook, and we have status message, okay. And you should also get a message on your phone in uppercase. All right, and now the final test that we have to do is we have to test this using our own phone. So again, make sure that everything is up and running, ngrok is running, then go to the conversation where you were just receiving the messages from and also received the hello world message from, and say something like hi there. And now the bot should immediately reply back to you with what you just said, but then in uppercase. So we've essentially created a shouting WhatsApp bot. Beautiful, right? No, but in all seriousness, if you got this connection up and running, this was really the hardest part. Now actually the fun part begins. So good job if you've been following along. All right, and that brings us to step 4, which is understanding webhook security. So in this README file, I've outlined some tips and some insights on how mainly the security.py is set up within this application. And really, I think this took me the longest to figure out how to properly set this up, but it's already all here for you. So I'm not going to go into all of the specifics really in this video because that would be too much and it's also quite boring, but just know that what's going on over here is it's quite cool stuff. It basically it is also required to interact with these webhooks because there is a verification process that is required from the Meta WhatsApp Business API, and this takes care of all of that. So we've created some decorators in here, mainly the signature required, which then validates the signature based on the app secret. And if we come over here to the views and look at the endpoint, so whenever something is sent to the /webhook endpoint, the add signature required decorator is passed on here. And this just makes sure that our application is safe and that the messages that are sent to our application are verified. And then we have another verification process in here as well, which uses the verify token, also required from the API. And like I've said, if you want to learn more about that, we have the verification requests and then validating payloads. You can reference all of the sources and learn more about that, but this is a really nice and clean setup to work with that. And now real quick, if you want to learn more about artificial intelligence, working with data and building applications like this, then what you can do is you can check out my free group, Data Alchemy. Link will be in the description and in the first comment below this video. In here is a community with almost 5,000 members. We share ideas on data, artificial intelligence, and we also have the classroom with various free courses. So that's all really exciting. Now, if you're already a little bit further in your career and you want to learn how to sell and monetize, for example, building WhatsApp AI bots like this and how you can do that as a freelancer, then we also got Data Freelancer, which I will also leave a link for in the description. So if that sounds interesting and you want to learn more than just what's here on YouTube, make sure to check out those links right now. All right, and then step 5 is to learn more about the API and build your app. So if you want to do more with this, I highly recommend going to the WhatsApp Cloud API and just look at what you can do over here. So there's actually a lot more that you can do in terms of sending messages, sending polls, sending images. So you can go over here to get started and that will cover most of what we did already. But here you have message templates, for example. So the Hello World one that we sent as a test experiment, that is something that you could put in there. So really, the API is suitable to create really advanced, even I would say, message flows and sequences that you can build up. So if you're interested in that, definitely look into the API documentation. I will definitely continue this journey, diving into this more, but that concludes it for now. And now we'll get to the final part for this tutorial. And that brings us to step 6, which is integrating AI into the application, which really is what you came here for, right? That is in the title, building AI WhatsApp bots. And now we only have a shouting robot, which is not very useful. So how do we integrate this with, for example, OpenAI? Well, I got you covered and everything is already worked out basically. So let me show you what you can do with this. And now we can get a little bit more into the code itself to see what's going on. But mainly there's one file, WhatsApp utilities. And here you can see everything that's going on when a message comes in. So this is a function to send a message. Here are some to process a message. But really, here is what's happening when a new message is coming in. So process the WhatsApp message. And right now we use a very simple function, generate response, that just returns that response in uppercase. So that's what you've been seeing. You send a message to the bot and it replies back in uppercase. But now what we can do, if I comment this out and I import my OpenAI service and put generate response in there, and then let me uncomment that, we now have an AI integration. So what's going on here behind the scenes? Well, let's actually have a look at generate response from the OpenAI service. And I already created an entire video on how I set up this process specifically. So I'm going to link that within this video. So make sure if you also want to integrate that and understand that, then you should check out that video, because this uses the OpenAI Assistance API with some data added to that, mainly the Airbnb FAQ that we created. So let me actually show you. We have the data, and that assistant has access to all of this information, turning it into an Airbnb bot that can answer all the questions basically that are in here. So now let's come back over here and run this again. So like I've said, it's as simple as changing this function over here to generate the response to integrate your custom functions. Now let me say that one more time. So this is a very straightforward templated boilerplate that you can use to interact with the WhatsApp API. But what's happening here inside this generate response function, this is going to make it user specific and use case specific. So here you can put all the logic that you want to take a message that is sent to WhatsApp. So that is the body that's coming in. And we take the message body out of that. And then you have to implement some custom functions to take care of that and to handle and to process that and ultimately send the message. So I hope that is clear. So for now, let's save this and come over here to our run Python file again and spin this up once more. So make sure that right now that everything is up and running again, that ngrok is still running. And if you want to do this yourself, follow along, you have to update the OpenAI API key environment variable as well, and also your OpenAI Assistance ID. So you need an ID and an assistant as well. Again, if you don't have that, check out the other video. It's pretty easy to set up. Okay, but what we can do right now is we can start to ask questions like, what's the Wi-Fi password? And now, since it has to communicate with the OpenAI API, it usually takes 2 to 3 seconds to process this information, and boom, there we go. The Wi-Fi password is, and now let's see what else is there. What's the pin for the logbook? So what's the pin? So let's ask that question and see how it will respond. And boom, there we go. We have the pin is 7469. And now we literally have built a WhatsApp Airbnb bot that is using information from this document that we have over here. So it can now help us with all the questions and answers that are in here. You could do literally the same for any other assistant or AI integration. You don't even have to use OpenAI. You could use open source one or other models. Just go in this service and see what's going on in the generate response function over here, and you can create your custom one. Now, and if you want to learn more about all the code that is going on over here, so for example, there's a lot going on in the WhatsApp utilities. We have some configuration for the Flask app. We have some views, which are also Flask specific on how to handle the messages, verification, and the webhook. Then I recommend, first of all, going to the GitHub page and then go to app and then read about this project structure over here, which is using the Flask factory pattern. I know that we didn't dive a lot into all of the code because also there is really a lot going on. So I wanted to cover this high level and then look at it and then see for yourself what pieces of code or functions you don't understand, and then maybe dive into that. So with all of this code, if you don't understand it, what I recommend, really put it into ChatGPT and ask it to explain it for you. Ask it what's going on. It can seem like a lot, but it's a really simple Flask web application in the end, even though it was a lot of work to put all of this together. But understanding how all of the pieces work together should be pretty straightforward, especially if you followed this video up until this point. And now the only things basically left to put this into production, into a real application, is adding a real phone number, not a test number, and putting this on a real server. But that's for another video, so make sure to subscribe so you can stay tuned for that. And now if you want to learn more about integrating AI within your applications, it could be WhatsApp, but could also be something entirely different, then make sure to check out this video over here.